Welcome back to Between the Silos, where we talk about sales and marketing alignment and why so many companies struggle with it. Today, I'm joined by Meghan Muchow, our very own creative director here at Vi. Meghan is a copywriter by trade, a creative reviewer at heart, and a fiction enthusiast. She holds her MFA in creative writing from Hamline University and has several short stories published in literary magazines across the country. Meghan has spent her entire career writing for clients across all kinds of industries. She also moonlights here and there as an adjunct professor for fiction and freelance writing courses. Welcome, Meghan.
Thanks, Jen. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. That's a lot. Some of these are new to me, so that's really exciting.
Yes, I'm a fascinating creature.
You really are. Well, I wanted you to join me for this particular topic because if there's anything we hear from prospects and clients in the early stages of a partnership, it's usually along the lines of how are you as marketers going to learn the complex processes and products we sell every day, right? We hear that all of the time. How is it even possible? You would get it.
All the time. I am not a gambler, but if content creation is on the table with a prospect, I would bet all my money and a stick of gum that content execution will be the sticking point for that client. They're asking, how do we do it? How do we make sure it's accurate? How fast can we get up to speed and produce something? They're all valid questions, and you best believe we will be answering all of them at that table.
Can't wait. Can't wait for that. So let's start out our conversation with tales from the trenches. You know the drill how this goes. So tell me about a time that a prospect questioned your ability, as you just alluded to, as a copywriter to write for them.
Okay, I'm bringing you two because there were too many to choose from, but I am proud of myself for getting it down to two. Also, if you're listening to this, you should go Google a photo of me because you would not know when looking at me that that girl can write about skid steer attachments or that girl knows the benefits of a hydraulic plate heat exchanger frame. Like, I know all these weird things and it's just not super common knowledge, but when you're a copywriter, these are the things that you just learn. So, my first tale is from my very first copywriting gig. I worked for this environmental company that was primarily B2G or business to government, and they dug up shrapnel from old military sites. And I was 22 when I took this job. Like, it feels illegal to have this job at that age. And this was before AI, and honestly, Google wasn't a whole lot of help in this industry. But I was constantly spending like a lot of time reviewing peer work, asking questions, and I wasn't faking that I knew it all. And that's how I gained their confidence because I could strike this really good balance between asking questions when I needed to, but not overwhelming them with questions, but then taking stabs at filling in the blanks when it made sense to do so. And that was how I earned trust. That's how we built a partnership. But again, 22 years old, how much could you really know about military ordinances? Am I right?
Yes.
And then on the flip side, I've also worked with companies, for example, a healthcare company that we partnered with that spoke to FQHCs, which are federally qualified health centers. And those organizations primarily work with underserved communities. And that company was really worried that we couldn't write with enough empathy to really capture how critical their establishments were in their communities, which is a really fair concern. So I tapped into my network. I have a lot of friends who work with clients that go to these health centers. I actually had an FQHC in my neighborhood that I frequently drove past. So I started to wrap my head around it in a way that just felt personal. And that really helped us to just make it feel authentic when we wrote about it. And some of that writing was actually the best performing content that they churned out. So I think a lot of that research and making it personal really helped us hit the mark at the end of the day.
So interesting. One thing, as you were talking about that, Meghan, I thought like what I always hear is like the agency will never understand the tone or the style. But I often wonder like, well, then why would anyone internally get it? If an agency can't get it, who writes for all different industries and all different facets, like how would somebody internally get that? So I don't know if you have any nuggets there of like maybe why people think agency will never get it, but internal will, or even like how that's so far from the truth.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. I like to think that there are people and organizations who need to know the nitty gritty. Like, that is part of the job. You need to know the technical aspects of what you do, but not everyone needs to know that nitty gritty. And I think a lot of times the first thing that customers will think about is, well, like what are some of the high level things that this company can do for me? But companies often think of like, how deep can I show them I know this product that I'm selling? So it's this mixed matched alignment of how much a customer actually wants to know versus how much you know about your own product. And that mix mash is why I think so many companies hesitate to bring in agencies because they're like, they'll never know that tech spec. They'll never know it to the extent that we do. But that is the benefit of hiring an agency. Like, we don't know the full extent. So we're less likely to get caught up in the minutia and more likely to present information that your customer actually needs and wants to know.
That was powerful. Yes, that I have been thinking that, but haven't found the way to say that exactly. But that is exactly it. Is like we don't know, so we can ask questions as if we're the customer because we are closer to them than the client of like understanding what they want to know to buy.
Exactly. I would say every client we work with and every client I've ever worked with has what I call the curse of knowledge. They are subject matter experts and they struggle to communicate simply to their own audience because they're so engrossed in the business. Like, they do it every day. So they think that every detail matters. But to be real, a lot of the details just don't matter, at least not when you're in the buying phase. They might want to know that once they have your product in hand, they might want to know it in a year, but they don't need to know all of that right now.
Fascinating. Yep, exactly right. All right, so moving on then. We know it's not easy to write for them because you have to like balance the knowing too much and not enough and what our customers need. And it gets really complicated when we're talking technical clients. So like why isn't that easier? Why is it so tough to get a client to believe that we can get on their level and produce quality content? So we talked a little bit about that, but like why isn't that easier?
Oh gosh, it is the question of the hour. I always like to tell people, uh, when you last bought something niche, like a washing machine, what are the things that you looked for when you were shopping for it? It's because it's if it's me, I'm looking at the color, I'm looking at the price, and I want to know basic stuff like how much can I get done in an hour? Like, eventually I'll get to the specs. But even then, like, I actually don't want to know how it's made. So I think people forget how simple our brains are. Like, we want things to look pretty. We want them to work. We want to show things off to people and say, look at this cool thing I got. But a lot of the shopping happens in that realm, but companies are so often giving such specific information. They don't get all of those things they want to know, or at least not at the level they want. So I think it's not easy because, like we were talking about before, subject matter experts take such pride in what they know, they want everyone to know it too. But that isn't the case for the person buying the product.
Oh, that is so good. And how often have we heard from a client when we don't write that way? Like they're like, "You don't get it." And you want to say, "No, you don't get it." That nobody cares about that right now. They might down the road, but through our work of interviewing personas and talking with them, we actually get a firsthand look at what do they actually care about and think like a consumer. So yeah, it's interesting when you compare the washing machine because you're exactly right of what you look at, but you go look at their marketing and it's all like features and benefits.
Features and benefits. Yep. And I would say that a lot of things our clients want us to write are things that you would find in the middle of an instruction book. Like, they want us to go so deep into something right off the bat when really we need to be focusing on, like, this has a really nice sheen on it. This has, like those really high level things. Now, to be fair, I don't want to know how a washing machine works. So when agencies go that high level of like, how does a washing machine work? That's good SEO. That isn't driving a benefit. That's not going to help you get anywhere. But there's that nice middle ground of what do consumers want to know? What's important for you to say this makes us distinct. These are things that you won't get anywhere else. And then really hammer it home with like, and here's how you get it. Here's how the buyer's journey works. This is why we make it easy. Like, it really is that simple.
Absolutely.
So, my question for you, Jen, is when you are working with clients, what's something that you often hear when it comes to content? What are some things that you get from feedback that make you think, like, that's a really good thing to think about when we create content?
Ooh, that's a good question. And so are you saying like once we bring in a client?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of some of the stuff we talked about. Like we often hear that they what they want to talk about and what we want them to talk about are not the same. Because they want to talk about, like you said, stuff that's in the instruction manual, stuff that's really deep. that they don't wanna know. So I think that that's something that we often see and have to battle a bit with our clients of, what they think versus what we're finding online and what our personas are telling us.
Yeah. And that persona work is so important. I think sometimes personas aren't created well. Like they're really high level to the extent where it's not really feeding you information about the consumer you're speaking with. But the way we do them here, and where I think there's a lot of value in personas, is getting those really specific details from talking to customers. Like, I don't always care about how old someone is or what their favorite music is.
Yep.
What I do care about, like, how do they like to buy? How many competitors are they going to look at when they're shopping for something? How are they going to do that process? That stuff's really valuable. And when we do personas, we share our screen and have people walk us through how they do that. And that's the kind of information that can really help you stand apart.
So true. I do think personas can get a bad rap sometimes because you see the, whatever hokey name and age and income and sure, that may help with some targeting. But what's really important is like how they think and how they feel. And like what frustrates them. We just did some personas for a client recently, and like there was a lot of ahas in it for them of like the trust that these people have or don't have, or words that we use or don't use that are like perfectly fine words. They're fine in every context except for this particular persona is like they are like anti-marketing. So you cannot speak to them in a way that makes it feel any bit marketing or sales. And so it's like really and then like it's easy to say that, but knowing a few layers deeper of like what words trigger them. What can you say and not say in the content? And frankly, a lot of our clients don't do that work themselves. They think they know their personas and they think they're writing to that, but their personas often don't tell them what they tell us. When it's like somebody outside of that, usually they're very, very honest.
Yes, and when we do persona work, we sometimes can't even we don't want to allude that we're working directly with the company because it does turn into just a rave review. But that isn't helpful. You want to know what isn't working or the things that maybe if they were a current customer didn't go well. Like what an opportunity to talk to a customer and fix things.
Absolutely.
Um yeah, so there's a lot of value there that you can find if you're willing to put in the time. And agencies are a great third objective party that can do that because you're not speaking with someone from the organization.
Absolutely. What are your kind of like hot things if you were going to summarize, like the key learnings that you've had in content creation for clients, and maybe not even content in its like I think people hear content and they think blogs and they think, stuff like that, but for us it's much bigger than that. So like what do you see as it relates to content and how we do content air quotes for clients?
Yeah, I think one of the most strategic things we do is the way that we talk to sales teams.
Mm.
So a lot of time, and that's what this whole podcast is about. So surprise, we're going to talk about sales and marketing alignment. But so few organizations do that. And the content that can come out of a sales and marketing call, like we just started doing them at Vi, which is almost silly to think about because we always preach how that's one of the best ways to make content. But we just started doing them. And the things coming out of this conversation is surprising. Like things that I, as a marketer, would think that we need for offers or ads are not the things that sales thinks we need. So we've actually seen some improvement already just by transitioning some of our content to speak to these more specific things that sales is running into.
So true.
And it's just crazy. Like it seems so obvious and we can say it all day. Yep, you should talk to sales. Marketing and sales should talk to each other. But until you do it, you really don't know what you're going to get out of that. But it has been astounding how much we've been able to pivot and see results just based on that small change.
Yeah, it is really interesting. And like putting those together, I think a lot of companies see them separate. Sort of that like sales and marketing. And I do think content, again, air quotes content is sort of like in the nucleus of that because you're like bridging those two together. And I think that doesn't always happen. Like salespeople don't use marketers to write their sales content. And I think that's such a miss, don't you?
Totally. I was just writing a sales sequence the other day, and there's just something about being in sales every day and what you want to say versus being a marketer who has a little more creative take. Because, like, being in sales, I can't even imagine. One, I can't do math. Two, I don't like cold calling. Like, this isn't the job for me. But I do love just being able to speak to people and talk specifics in a way that just helps engage. And I love supporting the guys who are on our sales team because I know they're busy trying to drum up leads. So, what better way to split the work?
Mhm.
But I think, this goes back to clients too, a lot of the times there's this weird tension between the person who needs the content and the person who's writing it. And it's not a game of how much do you know versus how much do I know. It's this partnership of skills. What do you know and what I can do? The copywriter should become a translator to help you communicate with your audience. Like we should be the ones bridging the clients and their technical teams with that end user. So I hate to say that we're tools, but in a lot of ways we are. We're these translators who can really make that move between what you need to get out of something and what a customer wants to hear from you.
I think that is like the mic drop, right? Is one, I don't know why that exists, but it exists almost everywhere, that tension between the needs and the wants, or the, the what the sales team needs and what the marketing team does. And I don't really understand it, but we see it every single day. And just like how when you partner together to say like, this is what I need and this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm trying to convey, and have somebody that does that all day, every day, like that's where the magic happens.
100%. I always say is step one, you got to give up ownership. And step two, you need to come alongside your writer. You need to meet with them. You want them to succeed more than anything. So give them those interviews they need with you to learn the products. They don't need to know everything, but give them that high level overview. We were just on a call with a client that is renaming one of their products, or it's a new product that's going to market. So we're helping them name it. Like, that is such a valuable moment, and they brought us in and showed us a whole presentation of what is the product? How does it compare to competitors? What are things that maybe aren't the best about it that they won't win in the market with? Having that information is gonna make the content so powerful. But if you just send us a list that's like, "Here's some things," we don't have a chance to ask questions, we don't get full context, and we're just not set up for success, and we probably won't deliver you something that's gonna be really great. So having that partnership and coming alongside the writer and saying, "We're on a team, let's do this together," like, that is where the gold happens.
Totally agree. And like I don't know why that doesn't happen. Any insight? Like do you see any reasons why? And it happens a lot that I don't know if it's just like people think it's a waste of time, but I don't know why it doesn't happen. And two, like it's so important for creatives to have that. Like hear it, see it, feel it, touch it with their own hands. Getting something handed to them is not the same.
It's not, and you shouldn't want to do that. You should want your writer to ask questions. That is, like, where they're going to find more because 'cause you're not gonna think of everything they might need to write about.
Mhm.
So, that's a lot of assuming where you're like, "I've got everything they need." Because chances are that you might be forgetting a few things. We all forget things on our grocery lists, so how are we gonna set up a brief correctly every time?
Yeah, if they
So
can do that.
exactly, yeah, even if there is a brief, which there often isn't.
Mhm.
I think there's just a misconception that an agency and a writer should be able to take something from day one and be able to write like they've been with your company for decades. That'll never happen. Any agency that promises that's going to happen is lying to you. And if you're in a true partnership with a marketing agency, you don't want them to know everything. You want them to know the things they need to be successful.
Boom. I got nothing to add. That was perfect. My last part is the same bit. So hot seat. Tell me, coffee or tea?
Coffee, always.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of surprised there. You are a tea drinker though, right?
I drink tea at night to be a healthy person.
Okay, okay. It's like obligatory. Got it. First draft perfection or multiple messy iterations?
I wanna be messy so bad, but I am what they call a diamond polisher. My first drafts are pristine.
That does not surprise me. Hardback or paperback books?
Okay, this is controversial. I'm gonna say hardback. Um, I think that they lay flat easier and faster so that I don't have to, like, pry them open and break the spine.
Okay, that is fair. Yep, I could go either. Just this one is really controversial. I don't know, ChatGPT or Claude?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna say Claude. I love Claude for writing, but I'm gonna say ChatGPT for, like, anything of project management or math.
Okay. I was all Claude, and ChatGPT's coming back. They're coming back for the win, I think. I don't know. It's getting stronger and better.
I don't disagree with you, but I do have my I Heart Claude AI t-shirt that I'm not willing to retire yet.
Okay, got it. So you kind of have to be loyal there. Understand? Wonderful. Well, Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. And for all the listeners out there, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you always know when a new episode lands. Until then, don't forget, the best things to happen to your team will always happen between the silos.